Hi, April Jackson here from Open Up Pittsburgh. Welcome to our open spaces. I'm so excited you're joining us and listening in today. Whenever this is for you, we are in the month of June 2022, and there's been a lot of stuff going on. The joys. We celebrated Juneteenth as a federal holiday because you know what? Not everyone is free until everyone is free. And over 150 years ago, I think 157 years ago to be exact, in Galveston, Texas, slaves who shouldn't have been slaves, people were told that, hey, you no longer have to be a slave. It's a federal holiday, and I really hope that you took some time to celebrate, to acknowledge your worth and value, and to really think about ways to move forward. Father's Day was in June. What a joy it is to celebrate those who are fathering children. With those joys came some real heavy lows. The Supreme Court came down on some laws that really affect people with uteruses. What choices do we have? And again, not everyone is free until we all are free. How do we advocate, support, lift up, and bring voices to the table that are necessary for movement forward? Maybe it's through community. And we have this compilation that will talk all about that. Aida and Trish from Calling In and Up are sharing some real amazing, wonderful, impactful information about community. Sadrina Jalal from Atlanta, Georgia, a change maker in that space, doing amazing things. Josiah Gilliam with City of Pittsburgh, my brother's keeper, again, talking about community. Wesley Hamilton from Kansas City, Missouri, and Richard Butler from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I intentionally am sharing their geographical locations because New York, Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, we are all in this together, my friends. We are all in this together. Laws affect one state, they affect our entire country, they affect us personally. But you know what? We keep our joy. Joy fosters resilience. And as we continue to foster our resilience, as we continue to be accountable to each other, to be in spaces with each other, we take care of each other. And we move forward with possibilities, with hope, with a determination to really understand that we are all under this. So, as we know we're all under this oppression, we know that there are possibilities to move forward. Join our community. Check in with us, and we really hope that you let us be a part of your community as well. This podcast is being brought to you by Open Up Pittsburgh. Open Up Pittsburgh is a nonprofit that centers those with disabilities and brings mindfulness and art practices so everyone has accessibility. It is an inclusive community, and Open Up invites you to go to the website, openuppittsburgh.org, where you can find video libraries, you can find resources, and you can also support with your donations.
This podcast is brought to you by the Disabled But Not Really Foundation, a local Kansas City nonprofit organization that pushes to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence within the disabled community. You can follow and support Disabled But Not Really on social media or go visit their website at disabledbutnotreally.org. Their work and their mission is to really impact communities and make more people understand the benefits of inclusivity.
Interdependence recognizes that we need each other to survive and thrive. And we all have needs and strengths that we bring to the table. I'm going to read that one more time. We all have needs and strengths that we bring to the table. In fact, to any space, I would say, right? And we are all operating under the same systems of oppression, right? So our liberation is also bound to each other. I'm gonna read that last line again. I just got to, I want that just to land for me. We are all, everyone around you, even the people you dislike, the people who always get things wrong around you, always making you wrong. We are all operating. I promise you, we are all operating, all right, under the same systems of oppression. Even us who feel like we got this shit, right? Like, can I cuss on here? I'm so sorry. Somebody tell me if I can't. Okay. Thank you.
Safe space.
Let me be me. Thank you. Okay. So, Yeah, so it's even like recognizing that even us who are like constantly like in this work, we have our blind spots, right? We are all operating under the constant same system of oppression. So our liberation is absolutely bound to each other, right? And I say that because I always tell people I am a recovering colonized woman. And even as a woman of color, even someone who has invisible disabilities, right? Health issues like constant, right? And though sometimes I feel like I'm a Capricorn suicide. Like I feel like I'm always right. So I need to be in community, right? I need to be with other people who can call me in and up, right? Because there's things that I'm still unlearning. There's still things that I'm decolonizing in my spirit, in the way that I move, and the way I make my choices, right? And all of us move in a different way, even more. This is something that Holiday Simmons taught me. If y'all don't know Holiday Simmons, reach out to the homie. He's dope. That when we're triggered and because we're always operating in systems of oppression, always under harm, that like he's taught me that we don't necessarily always show up as our best, right? And so that's like learning to, and the only way you really do that is to be in community with others, right? In an interdependent relationship.
Participatory grant making is something that some folks in philanthropy are starting to adopt, and that's where it kind of shows up in different ways. But the idea is that the folks who are determining where money goes in their community are directly connected to the work and represent the folks that are going to be most impacted by the work. And so the idea is that from the start of the funding experience all the way to awarding the money, there is weigh-in, there is a contribution. A really good example of this, I just finished serving on an advisory council for the Forward Project that MailChimp has. And it was about 12 of us, either nonprofit leaders, consultants, folks that have tons and tons of experience working in organizations and in philanthropy. Largely, not entirely, but largely Black women, because Atlanta, is largely Black, and the work is being done by Black women. So we really wanted to make sure that we were able to have that representation, but also the knowledge base of like what's happening in our city that is not being supported, and what are the organizations that can that we can really focus on. And it was incredible. We were able to support an application process that was not daunting. Again, I said most applications take 200 hours. We were able to support an application process that the applicants indicated was took them an average of 3 hours to complete. That's huge, right? Yeah. And this was, by the way, for $200,000 in unrestricted funds and $25,000 for strategic support. So it was a big grant that took them on average 3 hours to complete. So that was huge in and of itself, right? And then, beyond that, once you made it to the final round, they awarded everyone at least $5,000 just for participating in the process. So acknowledging that this investment really takes time, I think, is, and that the community's intellectual property, whether they receive, the $200,000 grant or not, is significant. And so really, I think it was huge for MailChimp to take that position. And then, the other thing I want to say is that all of that was possible because in Atlanta, Josh Penny is he's kind of the community-based grant manager. He has developed very significant relationships with the organizations and in the community that MailChimp seeks to serve. He himself is as a Black man and member of the LGBTQ community, and also, has family. His family owns a restaurant in the metro area. So like really understanding and being, really deeply rooted in the community, as well as making relationships, staying on top of what the needs are, what the community's asking for, is something that he's been doing for years. So he's like a household name. So he was able to handpick us. So I think that's how you create that, first, the relationship, and then you identify who are those key folks that can lead that work, and then compensation of the community. How do you compensate? Not just hopefully you'll get a grant. It's like, how do we respect and value the, just the wisdom and wealth and experience that already exists?
For those of us that are actually interested in things getting better, that are actually interested in actual impact, people's lives getting changed, and then getting changed over time. The work that you're doing is the most important piece. There's no shortage of top-down ideas. And like you said, like even folks' language is rooted in this idea of, underserved communities, underrepresented folks, all this stuff. But then they won't walk through the community, so to speak. And when I look to nature, I see examples that I think are encouraging to those of us in this journey. If you look at lightning, for example, lightning strikes in both directions. It takes an electrical imbalance in the clouds and in the ground, and you can watch slowed down videos, and you'll see like lightning coming up this way, lightning coming down this way. And it's when it meets, that's when you see that discharge that we associate as lightning. But it takes those of us that are willing to start where they're at to get that going, to start to move things. And it takes everyone playing, their part too. There is a systems role here. We need massive systems change almost every which way that you look. So it can't just all be grassroots. We understand that. It needs resources. So there needs to be people with capital to provide those resources. We know that there are ways, I grew up with a story around this guy named Nehemiah, and there's this beautiful sentiment in there of everyone having their spot on the wall, and that they're equipped for their spot on the wall. So we need the people in philanthropy, in the corporate sector, in politics, in the nonprofit space, on the ground, in our faith communities, all kind of rowing together. That's really how, it can work. But that's really what it takes. And what I found is in a lot of these spaces, there's a lot of good people with good intention. They just don't know what to do or where to start, because everyone only knows what they know and they don't know what they don't know. So they may know finally that it makes sense to say something like equity or diversity and inclusion on their corporate communications, but they don't know anyone in the community. And if they did, maybe things would be better. So for me, Pittsburgh's a big football town. It's all about strategy, right? And it's all about, here's how we do things. But I feel like I'm a basketball player. That's how I grew up. I like making those bounce and chest passes between folks so that they get off to the races. I'm all about the flow. I don't need to be the Department of Human Services if I can connect the Department of Human Services organizations on the ground that are making a difference, so to speak. And then of course, what you find is that people have been doing this work to a certain extent. And you can honor that. And I feel like that makes people feel good. You know what I mean? When you're like, look, I see you. And here's how we can connect, and here's how we can move forward. So
let's go full circle with this. So let's take this and then go into like what's going on in our world, in our country, right? And understand that if you have a community of people that one have definitely witnessed the defeat of a Black man, like you can't see that of any other race. Like just haven't seen it, not here in America, not from that magnitude. And so that's trauma. We go into quarantine. That's trauma. We're losing majority of our family because our family are the ones with the health issues that were affected by COVID, right? Like that's trauma, right? Like I felt like most of my community lost all of us lost our grandmas this year. I know, like definitely back home in KC. Yeah. And that's trauma, right? Like, and then you go into knowing that you see something, but you see someone kind of get swept under the rug, like a mass shooter, they get arrested, whatever. That's trauma because you know that for you, it wouldn't even get that far, right? Yeah. Like for you, like I stopped watching it, and I think I had a lot of people that reached out to me on social media, like with the wake of the gun violence, like, how do you feel? How do you feel about gun control? How do you feel about gun laws? And I'm like, it's hard for me to feel about anything when I know I'll probably get shot before I could say anything. And so for me, it affects me in so many ways. Like, I hate to see it. I don't want it to be happening, period. But then it's like, on the back end, like I always speak on it, like, I'm always going to be seen as a Black man first, not my disability, even now, right? And we, as Black men, we've probably all been through a situation where that makes sense, right? Like, we've been through a situation where, we felt defenseless, and if we slipped up or said the wrong thing or even acted like maybe we wasn't going to make it past that day. And I think that those things make it traumatizing, where that when we get into situations, maybe we're nonchalant or not speaking up so much about things because no one's understanding all the trauma. Like, I had to be blunt with people recently. Like, man, I don't want nobody trauma dumping on me no more if it doesn't come with healing too.
Right.
Like, don't tell me your story if we about to be crying together, bro. But,
and nothing wrong with crying, but
it's definitely nothing wrong.
Is,
but we have so much trauma. I'm dealing with trauma every day. I'm soaking in all of this. When I see a group of Black people get murdered and a murderer goes walk away, but I see a Black man get murdered because he's understood, it might have, like, that bothers me. That creates trauma where I have such a distaste in my mouth. I don't want to hear about it, right? Like, I don't. Yeah. And so it's like someone else can tell me their problem, and I'm like, but right now, I think even the push of just making sure that everyone understands the differences, but the reason why we should all really come together in a sense to get more control over the gun violence as a whole.
When we discover self-compassion, we can finally begin to love the others that might not actually love us. Once we're solid with our own compassion. And so self-compassion, self-reflection, self-care, self-awareness, all those selves is where we need to begin, just as individuals, to be able to then break the code. Because if I'm still hating on myself, if I'm still hating on people that look like me because the white supremacist body says I should hate on people that look like me, then I'm not cracking any code. And I'm not able to walk in those white spaces at all. And so just having that platform of who we are.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the podcast. If you would like more information on the guests and the stories that you've heard today, and to hear stories from others, subscribe to the podcast. We also invite you to subscribe to Open Up Pittsburgh's newsletter, as well as our YouTube channel. We want you all to take care, and remember to make your own stories. This is April. Peace.